one of the best ways to prevent that up and down is to keep masking, to require masking. And then we can have a better certainty that as little transmission is happening as possible in the situation that we've got. We can reduce the transmission with the masking. And I think that we can reduce yo-yoing and up and downs if we stay with requiring masking.
You know, the data doesn't show that. And let's just do some comparisons, because we have our school that has, our district has followed the Eastern Idaho Public Health recommendation of a mask mandate until our last board meeting. And then when they took it off, we continued it. We have it till it expires today. But if you look at our neighboring schools, for example, Rigby and Madison, who don't wear masks in their schools, based on what you're saying with the yo-yo effect and spiking in cases, if we were to remove the mandate, they haven't experienced that. They haven't seen that. The data doesn't show that if you don't require a mask, that all of a sudden there's going to be a spike, or there's going to be a yo-yo, or there's going to be drastic increases. Because if that were the case, we would see it in Madison School District, and we would see it in Jefferson School District. And according to the data on Eastern Idaho Public Health's website, when you can scroll down to individual cities, it's not there. They're no different. Their data is no different than our data here in Idaho Falls in Bonneville County.
Can I add one perspective that I think we don't know? And this is purely anecdotal. I don't have any data, but Rigby and Rexburg both have significantly more schools, bigger schools, and better schools than we do. And so I don't know where the social distancing comes into play. And even in 93, I think that they have, again, more schools, more space. And so I think that's where I kind of get caught up, like, okay, you're not wrong. The data does show that, but I don't know if we have everything's equitable. That's my concern, is that I don't know that our facilities and our schools and what we're dealing with is equitable across the board. And that's where my concern comes in, is that we know we don't have the ability to social distance in most of our classrooms. And so if we start pulling too many parts all at once, I worry that it's going to unravel, and then we are going to be back at yellow or something, and that's my concern.
Yeah, and I understand your point. It's valid. I guess I would counter that with saying they only have one high school in each of those towns, in Rigby and in Rexburg. And I do think their school is larger than ours, but they're also 5A. They also have more students in that school. I don't know what the square footage per student would be in their school compared to our school, but we know there's only one high school. We know that there's more students in those schools than what we have in our schools. And like I said, I just look at the data. I want to be clear. I'm not against masks. If people want to wear masks, I think they should have the right to wear masks. Let them wear masks. Their prerogative, fantastic. I just don't feel like it's our role to mandate a mask. Give people a choice. If they want to wear a mask, wear a mask.
So I feel like with the little kids, especially if their teacher doesn't require masks in their classroom, because we have talked about whether or not the teacher would require a mask. And I feel like if a child was in a classroom and they need to, for their family's health or their own health, if that child needs to wear a mask and their teacher doesn't require it, I feel like the child is not going to. Because kids do what their teachers tell them to do.
Well,
that's what we want.
Well, that's a what-if situation.
Well, it's a big
but I think we're going to have too many what-ifs if we don't have just...
If there was a parent that was that concerned about their health and the situation, if they have people with compromised immune systems at home, and they sent an email to a teacher or called the teacher or went to the school and met with the teacher and said, will you please make sure my child is wearing their mask during the day? I'm certain that teacher would help out and help.
That's just adding another layer to what we're already asking of our teachers. I think Larry's information that he gathered before the last meeting was very telling. in that 16 out of the 18 schools wanted to continue masking. It's
Schools
what
or principals? Larry?
principals,
The principals that I spoke with.
It's the,
Right.
so it's the principal. So that's just 18 people.
but it's not.
They're not virologists. They're principals.
None of us
And
are.
we aren't either. The CDC is recommending at all phases of schools reopening, no matter what community transmission is like, to continue masking so that you can stay in school. If our goal is to educate our children in our district and keep them in school now for 5 days a week, which I think is fantastic, then I believe that masking universally, when you cannot maintain social distance, needs to happen for our best effort to keep the children in school.
Laura, how often has the CDC been to our district?
You know what? The CDC doesn't visit any school districts.
Exactly.
So-
That's my point. They are creating regulations.
No, you
for the
interrupted me,
entire
Paul.
country.
You interrupted me.
Go ahead.
Please do not interrupt me. They make recommendations for the entire country based on their knowledge and their understanding of what is best for everyone. And they don't need to visit our school district to make recommendations for everyone. And they currently have recommendations out that with the current level of transmission in Bonneville County, that we should be in hybrid for the elementary schools and virtual for middle schools and high schools. And we're not following that. But I do think that we should follow their request and their recommendation for masking. I'm done.
So you want to pick and choose?
Yes,
what
I
you
do.
wanna follow and
Yes,
what
I
you
do
don't
want to pick
follow.
and choose. Because I think you might have a point, Paul, that we want to pick some things that are best for our local area. But some things might be best to follow the recommendations of the doctors. And I don't think that picking and choosing is a bad thing to try and make the best decisions possible.
Right. And what my point is that CDC is making a recommendation for the entire country. They're looking at the worst case scenarios that you're seeing in New York and Los Angeles and so forth. And they're having to make a recommendation for the entire country. That's my point. And we're Idaho Falls. Our situation in Idaho Falls, thank goodness, is very different than what is taking place in New York and Chicago and Los Angeles and Oregon. And so when you have this agency that's making a recommendation for the entire country, they're going to take the most conservative route because they have to consider what's going on in New York and LA.
And you know what,
That's
Paul?
not
I
Idaho Falls.
actually agree with you as far as whether or not our schools can be open. And that's why I said we can pick and choose, because we know our district and whether or not we think we should be open for in-person learning or not. But masking is a thing that the doctors and the scientists have shown that wearing masks reduces transmission. And we need to reduce transmission as much as possible so that we can stay open, which we as a board have decided is the thing we want to do. And so we need to do everything we can within the parameters of our schools and that we have decided we want to be open. We need to do everything within those parameters to stay open. And I think masks are the way to go with that.
So how does Madison have school 5 days a week and not have masks and not have spikes in COVID?
You know what? I don't know, Paul. I don't know. And I frankly don't particularly care. I want to make a decision for District 91 in Idaho Falls, and I want to make my decision based on being a trustee of District 91 with what I think is best for us, and Madison School District and their trustees can make what is best for them.
Right. I think we can take the data, though, that's from Eastern Idaho Public Health and learn from it.
They could not be testing though. I mean, it all goes back to, are people getting tested when they're sick or not too? I mean,
Their testing rate, I would have to grab my computer, their testing rates on Eastern Idaho Public Health website too.
For all we know, Paul, they're sending their kids to school sick and no one's getting tests. We don't know.
I don't think
We're not
that's
up
the
there.
case, but
well, and masking also then could change our quarantine. Right now we have 1 case and 0 in quarantine. We're on the heels of spring sports. Do we want to have that windfall of quarantine and the barrage of emails about healthy students being quarantined because now we're not masking, or one person is choosing to and the other one is not? There's that to consider as well.
sure. And of all those kids that we quarantined, how many of them got sick?
That's not the point, Paul.
No, it's a question. Of all the kids that we quarantined before, how many of them got sick?
If I remember right, it was 4 or 5.
Not very many.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even think it was that many out of the hundreds that were quarantined.
But all of this is not just about the students. It's not just about the teachers. It's also about the community. They're out in the community too. If we can keep them masked for several hours out of the day when maybe there could possibly be transmission, there's a thing called viral load too, that when you're masked, you might not get that full effect of the virus if you happen to contract it. It's the right thing to do. And I think that you know that, right?
Tell me,
I know,
you
but
speak for me, Laura.
I'm not speaking for you, but
know
I
what
think
I've looked
that
at on the data and I've researched it. So if what you're saying is the case, why has Eastern Idaho Public Health removed their mask mandate?
because the board, who are not doctors, they are commissioners, chose to. The doctor on that board voted against removing the mandate.
They followed their plan. It was all part of their plan from the very beginning.
That had been modified several times.
Their plan was only modified based on hospital load.
No, they changed from the 10 to 15 per
Based on-
10,000.
It was all based on hospital load and
Right.
what they felt like
But
hospitals.
they've made modifications to their plan
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely. But it's all based, if you call them tomorrow and ask them why they changed their plan, it was all based on hospitals and hospital load.
And it's commissioners that vote. The director and those that have. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I want to hear what you want
I
to
was just
say.
saying,
about
because it's the commissioners that are the representatives of the people.
Well, they didn't. The doctor is in Bonneville County. They didn't speak for her. She voted no.
Right, this is, okay.
Larry, do you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation? I mean, you had some pretty good conversations with our principals. I do feel that that's pretty telling.
Actually, I have a question for Larry.
Sure.
The two schools that you could not share with us their principals' ideas before, were you able to get a hold of them?
Yes, I heard from both.
So now we have communication with all 18 schools.
Yeah. And this is an interesting topic with regard to masks. I think that every single one of us would love to discard our masks and burn them and
Of course.
never have to wear them again. But I just, not only from my conversations with the principals, but looking at the vast amount of emails that came in over the last couple of weeks from teachers, staff at schools, and so forth. I mean, it's overwhelmingly. And one of the things that, I mean, you can always find experts say whatever.
Whatever your position is, you can find.
You can.
Text on.
You can. It's a book I remember reading in my statistics class was How to Lie with Statistics.
Very true.
And so if you wanted to find somebody to support A, you'll find somebody. If you want to find somebody to support Z, you can find somebody. And so whether it's the CDC, whether it's Eastern Idaho Public Health, whoever it is, you can always find somebody that's going to support a particular position. My thoughts on the topic of masks is we need to go to the source of who are the people that are going to be dealing with the masks on a day-to-day basis. And I mean, yes, it is the students that are going to be the ones required to wear the masks every day. Or, not if that's the decision. But the thing that I think of is just because you'll have as I talked with school administrators, almost overwhelmingly, and this was, I asked a two-part question. What's your opinion from an administrative standpoint? And then two, what is the position of your teachers? And I think from what they told me was high 90% of those people, of the administrators, they wanted to continue masks in the schools. And then I look at all the feedback that we got from emails from teachers, and it was overwhelmingly, yes, there were a few that, and I recognize, I've talked with my sister who teaches first grade in another district, and she would love nothing more than to be able to have that face-to-face communication with her students. It's vital to do that. But I just think where the thought that I have from the information that I've gathered, I would propose that where and if social distancing isn't possible, and I think as a district we have to have a mandate. I don't think it's a fair thing to put on the shoulders of a teacher and say it's at your discretion in your classroom, because it can cause so many issues from one classroom to another, that I think if it's not, and this is again coming from somebody who would much rather not wear a mask, but I think at this period of time, and maybe again, our COVID plan says right at the beginning, this can change. And maybe if things just change, the vaccine is sent out globally, there's a lot more opportunity. Maybe this changes down the road. But I think for now, that just given to make life easier for our teachers, because I know there's going to be a lot of people in the community that want masks worn, and to try and help protect, the other citizens of this community. I think just being good citizens, I think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you for that, Larry. Hillary, do you have any other comments or?
No, I think we covered most of the bases.
Rounded them a couple of times. Yeah. Are we ready to move on to our action items then? Okay. Unless you had anything else you wanted to add, Superintendent?
Nope.
Okay. First action item is employee 2020-2021M. Do I have a motion to release from contract?
I'll move that we release employee 2020-2021M from their contract.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, and on to the COVID operational plan modifications.
Can I have just a point of discussion on this
Sure.
before a motion is made? Specifically with regard to the middle schools, I don't think we should have any latitude as to the structure that they take. So I don't know if we need to have that in the motion, or if We
I
just
don't
let
think if
them
we
continue.
added in, if we left it alone
We
and
were
just.
never involved in the first
Okay.
place.
Yeah,
what
so
they
if
did.
we had the motion to say move to the green phase, then they would have the latitude to what they will for that Friday.
Okay.
Is anybody prepared for a motion on either topic?
Yeah, that I'll move that starting third trimester or March 8th, we move to the green phase.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion or questions? Okay. All the-
Just for clarification, by moving to the green phase, that means all schools will be in session 5 days a week.
Correct.
I have a point of clarification on that then. We did not move Emerson to yellow when we moved the other high schools. If we move them to green with everyone else or any of the other schools, will that be a problem for them in any way?
No, it would actually enhance the instructional time for them, just like it would everybody else. So rather than meeting 4 days a week, they'll meet 5 days a week. They have a block schedule, but it's very different, where they have limited numbers of classes anyway, so.
Okay.
And they've always been on
Yep.
a block
Yeah.
style,
So
so.
it just gives them another opportunity, one more day.
Thank you.
Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.